Hey guys, Dev with Crime Hive, and I've got the affidavit for Chad Daybell's arrest in this case, and we continue to hear about the bizarre things that happen, and I'm just going to go through some of the things in this case that really stuck out, and we're just going to kind of talk about that a little bit. So many of you guys probably already have seen this. It's again, this is a leaked affidavit. I'll probably provide a link for it too if you guys want it, if you haven't seen it. We're just going to go over a couple of the details in this case. So as we go through, I've highlighted some of the most important things. We'll just start right here on number 7 of the affidavit. So basically, we know that Lori Vallow moved to Rexburg, Idaho on about September 1st, 2019. And what's interesting, what I highlighted here is you've got Alex Cox resided in the same complex. So he was living right there, and that's going to come into play later in this affidavit. So that was an important part to highlight in there because what we're going to learn through this affidavit is Alex Cox is very much involved in the disappearance and the murder of these children, according to this affidavit, according to the investigation. So, of course, again, we know Alex Cox is deceased. That's Lori's brother. And as we go through this affidavit, that will come into play. So I wanted to mention that first and foremost. So as we keep going through, I'm going to make this bigger too. It's kind of a weird. Oh, I think we're okay right here. So this is one of the other things here. So the FBI has this unit called CAST. Okay, and it's basically called the Cellular Analysis Survey Team. That's extremely important in this case because that's really the breakthrough that really helped investigators find the children, find out exactly where they were. So I mentioned this because this is really important. And again, we're talking about the death of 2 children. You've got Lori Vallow arrested. Now you've got Chad Daybell arrested, and this is the affidavit for Chad Daybell. Again, this is Dev with Crime Hive. If you guys like these videos, subscribe, and we're going to keep digging in through this here. So anyway, this group called CAST, okay, so what they do is they analyze cell phone records and then they give it to law enforcement, basically. So what they did is they actually had a hold of Alex Cox phone records, all of his locations, GPS data. So what they do is this detective's talking about his training and experience, and he's saying that most individuals now keep their cell phones with them. So crucial part of investigations nowadays with technologies. People keep their phones on them all the time. It's weird if they don't have their phone with them or they turn it off for a tiny period of time. They find these little things through their investigations that stick out. And so one of the things that CAST does is they use the cell GPS data. They use cell tower connections. They use Wi-Fi connections and Google tracking information to establish the location of each cell phone. So this is what was really used. This is really the important data that ultimately helped them find these children. So it's so accurate that these GPS data points are considered to be highly accurate and can place the device within a 6-meter radius. That's huge. So it's just continuing to evolve. And so I wanted to highlight that. It was very, very important. And then this is where it gets interesting here. This is where we start really figuring out about what's the significance of this data. Okay, Monday, September 9th, right? Why is this important? Okay, we know that Tylee was missing at this time, right? September 8th was the last time she was seen. Yellowstone National Park, right? And then you've got JJ, September 23rd. 2019. He's no longer seen or heard from again after that. So we're going to talk about those specific dates. Now on September 9th, they look through Alex Cox phone records. And so here's what's interesting. Okay, on the 9th, all right, apartment 107, which is where he was, right next to Lori Vallow, at 2:42 a.m. to 3:37 a.m. Okay, Cox is located again at Lori's apartment where Lori lived with Tylee and JJ. And the reason this is significant is because he's there in the middle of the night. Those are very strange hours, right? And here's the interesting part also, is because this is the only time in September he appears to go over to Lori's between midnight and 6 a.m. That's what you would call a clue, right? Really interesting time frame right there. here's another interesting part here. So at 9:21 a.m. the same morning, he was then located at, you guys might be familiar with this address, 202 North 1900 East, okay? Or this is in Rexburg, right, which is Chad Daybell's address. So GPS, Fremont County is where he's at. So at 9:21, GPS data points place him behind the home on Daybell's property, Chad's property, near the east end of the barn. This is the area where investigators, we saw those photos before. I've done other videos on this. You guys have seen the photos of the FBI and the forensics teams out. They had the backhoe and they were starting to search the property. That's where that location is right there. So, and this affidavit is kind of weird. It kind of goes to a bigger font than to a smaller font. So bear with that. I may have to change it as we go through this here. Another part of the investigation that was interesting, right? FBI had been examining Tammy Daybell's phone. Okay, this is really interesting too. I'm really just pointing out things that were not really discussed in previous videos. I've already done Lori Vallow's affidavit, and we've just learned little bits and pieces, and this is stuff that it was all pretty new to me. Some very intricate details here that I thought was very crucial in these cases here. So this is something I was definitely not aware of. Okay, you've got Tammy's phone being analyzed, right? And they found a text conversation between Tammy and her husband Chad, right? And this is all on September 9th as well. Okay, this is the day after the last known sighting of Tylee at Yellowstone National Park. What are you guys' thoughts on this so far? I gotta be honest, I thought for sure that the last place she was found at Yellowstone, I thought that's where investigators would find Tylee. I mean, obviously we all hoped that they were fine and that they were just being hid, but I think a lot of us knew that they were ultimately murdered, which is very tragic in this case. But I thought that they would find, at least I thought they would find Tylee in Yellowstone, and ends up it's literally just in their backyard, Chad's backyard. So it's just pretty interesting there, how that is. So anyway, this text conversation is really interesting. So he is, and I'll just read some of the text conversation. So Chad's expressing to Tammy, this is at 11:53 a.m. He says, "Well, I've had an interesting morning. I felt I should burn all the limb debris by the fire pit before it got too soaked by the coming storms. While I did so, I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun, and he was still walking along. I got close enough that one shot did the trick. He is now in our pet cemetery. Fun times." Right? Really interesting, really, really strange. So you got Chad expressing to Tammy, there's a gunshot that went off. And then as we go down further in the affidavit, we know neighbors heard this gunshot. They were kind of like, what's this gunshot? So again, kind of got to wonder what, where this ties in, and especially with when we look at the autopsy and that kind of data. I didn't really see that in this affidavit. We'll do that in another video. But so apparently he's killing a raccoon is what he's saying, and then he's just expressing little text to her too, saying he's gonna go shower, then go write for a while at BYU, love you, and then she's just like, good for you, and he's like, I'm back home now. So anyway, here's where that's kind of interesting here with the raccoon scenario here. So the reason the investigator found the text suspicious is because, for one, he says raccoons are normally nocturnal animals and are not regularly out during the day, which is true. I mean, as soon as the sun starts going down, you'll start to see these raccoons popping up. I've seen it myself. As soon as the sun goes down, I've seen them come out of like little sewer areas, and a little family, a little tribe of them just running around, going towards dumpsters and whatnot. So really interesting, but he mentions that. And then he starts, talking about how he interviewed the neighbors of Chad Daybell, who, they were saying that in mid-July of 2019, Garth Daybell, here's where I highlighted this, and I want to know your guys' thoughts about Garth Daybell. Do you guys think he knows more than what we may believe? I mean, do you think he may be involved in any of this? I mean, he's kind of right at the heart of this too. You've got Garth Daybell, Chad's son, telling neighbors that Chad had shot a raccoon out of a tree on their property during the day. Okay, so these are the neighbors. So Garth, Chad's son, saying to one of the neighbors, Matt Price, about a raccoon in a response to a question from Matt about hearing a gunshot. So, he's telling him that, there's a fire pit in the back of Daybell's property, that was hardly ever used until the last few months. So you got this, all of a sudden, this new behavior going on, and neighbors tend to notice these kind of things. They're like, well, you never use this. And then all of a sudden, they're seeing frequent bonfires in the pit on the Daybell property over the last few months. And the first one she noticed was soon after Tammy's death on October 19th, 2019. So really interesting. That was, and I know a couple of viewers had mentioned the bonfires before. So definitely a tip that when they put the totality of this case together, they've learned about this pet cemetery. So these are all little points that investigators are looking at. Then they look at the GPS data. They see that there's activity right there in the backyard. So they were able to pinpoint this information. Some of us thought maybe they were tipped off by Lori. Some of us thought that maybe they were tipped off by another source, and other people may have tried to nail Chad, and maybe Lori was trying to get a better deal with prosecution or something like that. So that was kind of interesting. Now, next thing I highlighted here was on June 2nd, 2020. You've got the detective, the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. He contacts, this is kind of interesting because this is Tammy Daybell's sister, Samantha, right? We've heard about her in the picture. She's the one that tells investigators about a pet cemetery. And, apparently they would bury pets in their backyard, okay? And then this is the part that was interesting. It was on the Daybell property. She stated that it was east of the Red Barn and near the fire pit, okay? Again, that area is extremely important. So June 4th, 2020, detective speaks with Samantha, and she informed him that she was aware of the location of this pet cemetery. So she knew, and then she was shown aerial photographs of the Daybell property, and she pointed out that area. Now, this is why I highlighted this also, because this is the same area near the fire pit where Alex Cox's phone pinged on September 9th, 2019, okay? Again, Alex Cox. I think most of us knew that Alex Cox had to have something to do with this. He was just involved in every little part of this mystery, it seemed like, and then, of course, he's dead. I think his death is still a mystery, though it's been shown that it's supposedly a natural death. I still think there's more to this case, and I still, in my mind, I still believe poison's highly involved. I'm still really interested about more of the details on this case, with especially with Tammy Daybell, Lori's other husbands. I mean, there's just so much more still, and that's one of the reasons we continue to cover this story. It's just a very active story. This is definitely not the end, even though I'm sharing the arrest affidavit for Daybell here. We got, so Chad. Anyway, the next part here. So right here is interesting. Alex Cox appeared to be at the Daybell property on September 9th, 2019 until at least 11:39, okay? Chad sent the text to Tammy about burning debris and shooting and burying the raccoon in the pet cemetery only 14 minutes later at 11:53, okay? So these are all documented. The pet cemetery referenced by Chad Daybell is located at the same location as most of the pings on Alex Cox's phone on September 9th, 2019. So they're really establishing Alex was there during this key date of September 9th, right? Okay, so wanted to establish that. There's a lot of other things in this affidavit, obviously. Another important thing I mentioned was they spoke with, you got Melanie Gibb, right? And they, again, if you remember in one of my other videos, JJ was last seen on the night of September 22nd, 2019. Why I highlighted this was pretty interesting because Melanie, so they learned that JJ was acting up on that day, right? You've got Lori saying that JJ's acting, like a demon. He's being a zombie, all that crazy talk that we talked about in another video. So apparently, though, this is what's interesting with Alex Cox again, is Lori had told Melanie that Alex took JJ to his apartment in the complex. So when Alex returned later that night, he was carrying JJ, who appeared to be asleep with his head on Alex's shoulder. I thought that was interesting because was he asleep? Was he sedated with some sort of medication? What's really going on here? All we know, again, though, Alex Cox. That's what we keep hearing, right? And again, he's dead. Do you guys think that maybe this was just too much for him to bear, knowing that he may have possibly been involved in two deaths right here? So again, just speculation, right? We don't know all the answers. It just seems like it kind of fits in place, right? What do you guys think about that aspect of it? And then we also know that, Gibb and Warwick, they're on the morning of September 23rd, 2019. They were asking where JJ was, right? So again, it says that Vallow had informed Warwick and Gibb that Alex had come and taken JJ. So, this is another witness here that's pointing to Alex being involved on that particular date right here, September 23rd. Those are the important dates here. September 8th, September 9th, September 22nd, September 23rd. Those key dates there. Alex tends to be involved. So again, you got that FBI cast team that's analyzing Alex Cox movements on these dates. So on September 23rd, 2019, cell phone GPS again at 09:55 hours. Alex is again on Chad Daybell's property. He was there until 10:12. The pings on his phone locate Alex near the pond on Chad's property at the northern edge of his property. Really interesting data right there, and I think that's kind of the nail in the coffin, if you will, on that. So, and this for some reason the affidavit gets kind of big through certain parts of it here. So I'm going to try to move this around a little bit. Right here, another part here. So the detective is asking. So he was asking the cast team right here, basically to analyze the frequency of Alex Cox visits to Chad Daybell's property in the month of September. And so he said, per your request, I checked the visits by Alex to Chad's house again. There were four. Let me see if I can minimize this a little bit here. Let's minimize this just a touch. So there were only 4 visits by Alex during the month of September. Okay, 9/6. 9/9, 9/23, and 9/25, right? During the 2 visits on 9/6 and 9/25, all the pings were in and around the house, and there were no pings anywhere in the backyard near the fire pit or pond. As you can see, these visits were also short, about 11 minutes and 17 minutes, like the one on 9/23. Let's see, the visit on 9/9 was the only long visit, approximately 2.5 hours. Okay, so really interesting there. Let me see if I can make this even smaller. We may have to, through this part of it here, it's just weird how the text changes there. So, okay, so then, a really interesting segment again into this case here. So on June 9th, we know this date, 2020, a search warrant was executed at Chad Daybell's residence and property, okay? So you got the FBI team. This is where from that data, okay, they've got multiple sites of interest now. So they start... So through that data of Alex Cox's phone, they know that he was on the property. They know the sites. It's just kind of mentioning the same stuff there. Okay, so the first site of interest that they were looking at was on the north side of the pond, okay, near the north edge of the property. So this site corresponded with the 2 GPS pings from Alex Cox's phone on September 23rd, 2019. Okay, so here's what they find. This is when they start actually, we all wondered, like, what are they looking for? What are they doing? We only just saw these little brief images and all that. This is where you kind of have a much better idea of what happened as if you were there. Okay, this is where they start talking more about this. So I'm going to read some of this off, and you guys let me know what are your thoughts on this case. I mean, this is just one of the most bizarre cases I've ever seen, and I'm sure you guys would imagine or believe the same. So right here, this is the first interest, what they do here. There's a patch of ground that was located and appeared to be disturbed. Okay, so they're already finding disturbed ground. There's weed growth on top. Another interesting point to point out, though, okay, the weed growth on top of the disturbed ground was shorter than the surrounding weed growth. That's another little clue that they can look at right there, okay? There's a change around that ground, okay? And so they pinpoint that little area. What appeared to be the sod etching was also noticed, okay? The disturbed area was approximately 4 feet by 2.5 feet, okay? Pretty interesting there. Then what they do is they remove the top layer of sod, okay? Underneath that layer of sod, all of a sudden there's several large flat rocks, okay? These rocks were then removed, and then you've got 2 pieces of flat paneling that were found. The paneling was removed, and then investigators exposed a round object covered in black plastic. Okay, so this is what they're starting to uncover for the first time here. Okay, now the writing gets tiny through this little segment. I don't know why it does that, so we'll make this bigger again. And this is where we're starting to get really deep into this here, okay, to this particular moment in the case, okay? So they started looking through the black plastic, and then all of a sudden a strong odor was noticed, okay? And so what they do is they use a small, sharp instrument that makes a small incision in the plastic, and a layer of white plastic was observed, okay? Tiny incision, they're trying to preserve evidence, right? They don't know what's going on. They're trying to minimize any disturbance of this evidence. So the incision's made into the white layer of plastic, and it exposed what appeared to be human remains, okay? So this is where the investigation just blows up right here. This is the moment. They know it, and this is what creates this really the beginning of the end of Chad right here, okay? And then we're going to talk about his reaction to this too. It actually mentions it in the affidavit here. So human remains, the crown of a head covered in light brown hair, okay? Now, the remaining dirt around the object was methodically removed. Again, they have to be very careful around. They have to really sift through. There could be evidence all around, in the soil, the ground. They have to be very careful. It can take a long time, and it's just not a fun process, really. I mean, it's not as it's not like CSI where it's just they just all of a sudden uncover it. I mean, it's very methodical. I mean, they have to be very careful. It takes several hours to uncover this kind of evidence. So the remaining dirt, okay, so they exposed what appeared to be a body wrapped in black plastic. The plastic appeared to be tightly wrapped around the body and secured with gray duct tape. Okay, what it doesn't mention here, another interesting piece. You guys follow other crime stories and cases and all that. Tape has been involved in so many cases, and they've found fingerprints and DNA from people touching the tape, and so I'm really interested to see if they can get some additional information. We're going to find out more when they sift through that, but I'm wondering if what information is going to be found on the body. Who will it be? Is it going to be Alex? Is it going to be Chad? Is it going to be Lori? What do you guys think about that? So the tape could be very crucial. I know it seems such a minor detail, but I think that could be very important. So then you've got Cheryl Anderson. She was the associate professor of anthropology at Boise State, okay, which is in Idaho, and she was present on scene, and she's the one that actually advised the remains found near the pond appeared to be human, okay? So we knew it was a pet cemetery area. They did find some animals, which mentions right here down here that I'll mention here. So there were animals found. Now, we then talk about the second site of interest right here, okay? This was located behind a red, unattached outbuilding located roughly in the center of the property near a fire pit, okay? Next to the fire pit is an area used as a pet cemetery. This is where, again, GPS pings of Alex Cox, September 9th, 2019, all right? Ground in this area was probed with a steel pole, okay? Several areas of disturbed ground were located during this process, okay? So they start searching the ground. They find a buried cat and a dog remains, okay? Then they use the backhoe. This is when this was used to dig further layers of the dirt. While they do this, they're finding bricks, and the bricks were discovered. So once the bricks were discovered, the soil was examined, and what appeared to be 2 bones were located, okay? Based on the condition of the bones, Cheryl Anderson, again, was not able to determine whether the bones were human, so they keep methodically looking through the dirt. They're searching. They find other bones, charred tissue and charred bones, right? Suggests that maybe this potential human was burned, right? They were trying to burn the evidence, trying to burn these bones, right? They're charred. Cheryl Anderson indicates these additional bones, both charred and uncharred, and tissue found were human remains, okay? This is on the second site here. So investigators provide photos of some of the partial remains that were found at the pet cemetery, and Dr. Getz was able to identify those as being non-adult human remains, okay? So that's when they when the news had come out that we knew that they were children remains. That's how we found that part out. This was from Dr. Getz. Okay. Again, it's really disturbing, you guys. Not an easy case to not easy to read this kind of information off to you guys. We know. I think we knew this was coming, unfortunately. And then this is really the end of this particular affidavit that was found. So, and the last thing I'm going to leave you with is Chad Daybell, and it talks about his reaction to this. Okay, so what do you guys think about this part? I'm going to read off here. So officers are conducting their search, right, with Chad Daybell. He's observing these officers, and he's continuously watching where they're searching, apparently, during this process, right? So he's watching, he's sitting in his vehicle, and he's in front of his driveway, he's sitting in his vehicle across the street from his daughter's residence, apparently. And then, all of a sudden, let's see, they discovered, all of a sudden he's observed leaving his daughter's residence in a gray SUV, right? Okay. And this is when investigators found that there were children. As soon as they find that there's children, he takes off in his gray SUV, right? This is when officers pursued him in police vehicles, conducted a traffic stop. I talked about his arrest. I have that in another video as well if you guys haven't seen that. They conducted that traffic stop, detained him due to the fact that there were human remains discovered on his property. So that was the end of this affidavit. That's what I wanted to cover today. Hope you guys got something out of this. A lot more information is going to continue to filter down. And, and then it goes off to the other Lori's affidavit that I've already done in a previous video as well when I covered the red flag. So it's all coming together. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this video. If you enjoyed this information, I'm going to be coming out with more information again, as always, with another video. If you like these, subscribe to my channel. I appreciate your guys' support. I'll be back with another video soon. This is Dev with Crime Hive. You guys take care.